Hey guys, it's Along. In today's video, I'm actually going to be explaining to you guys how the different quadrants of the corner farlands are all related to each other. So, you guys will see that right now I am by the southeast quadrant corner farlands. And there are actually two distinct areas of every corner farlands in every map. There is when we're traveling, when you start from here and travel straight along the x-axis, and when we travel straight along the z-axis. So here we are in the southeast quadrant, and everything else in between is sort of an interpolation between the two. So now if we teleport to the northeast quadrant, there we go. You guys will see that if we look toward the z-axis here, it is actually an exact mirror image of the same area in the southeast quadrant. But as we head over toward the x-axis side, there is actually an entirely different type of terrain than on the x-axis side in the southeast quadrant. And once again, everything in between is sort of an interpolation between the two. Let's get away from the cow. And the reason for the mirror image so basically, the reason why it appears as a mirror image when the larger of the two fraction values is inverted, which is basically what this is because when the three values are multiplied together, the quintic values would be roughly multiplied together. And when we flip the sign of the larger fraction, we're also flipping the sign of its quintic value in the product. Now you might be thinking that would result in an inverse, like what inverse of the terrain, but it turns out that we are also flipping the sign of the fraction value itself, which is significantly larger than the other. I'm lagging a little bit here. But when you flip the sign of a smaller fraction, the terms related to it are negligible. The terms directly related to it are negligible, but the quintic is still multiplied by the rest of the whole thing. So we'll still flip the sign of the whole. So we'll actually flip the sign of the whole value. Now let's head over to the northwest quadrant. And now you guys will see that it has pretty much the same diagonal line as the southeast quadrant. In fact, it is an exact inversion of the southeast quadrant. Like, take every space that's air. Like, you may remember that the southeast quadrant had very thin layers. So it was floating over an ocean toward the z side in this seed. Well, now in the northwest quadrant that is inverted to become very claustrophobic caves with a thick rock around them. So it is lagging a bit. Let's see if I can kill off here. Yeah, I didn't really do much. So I'm still not exactly sure why the northwest quadrant appears in inverse, but that's when we flip the signs of both fractions. And flip the signs of both on the x and z axes, but don't do anything with the y. So it's probably related to the lerp function, to the lerp functions being applied to the fraction values themselves, in addition to the quintic signs being flipped. And now if we head to the southwest quadrant, sorry, that positron right here, you will see indeed, if you get down below here, it will eventually look exactly the same as in the southeast quadrant when traveling in the x-axis, side, down in the x-axis from the initiation of the corner. And note that I do have the negative quadrant patch that I've added in my mod enabled for this, as it makes it much easier to explore these other quadrants, and at least in the regular corner farland. Because normally the diagonal lines will be way offset, because the fraction would normally start at negative 4.294 billion right away in the negative farland. And indeed, this southwest quadrant is also an exact inverse of the northeast quadrant. Like, take every solid layer from the opposite signs quadrant and replace it with air, and vice versa. And note that the corner fartherlands close to the edges behave pretty much the same as the edges when flipping the sign of the main axis we're traveling on. And now,
You done?
not yet, for the corner fartherlands. So for the corner fartherlands, we actually see that the northwest, put light on. There we go. You'll see that now we're on a different seed actually. I of course used the famous glacier seed for the first world. Now I'm on one of my other favorite corner farmland seeds, this one. You notice that the northwest quadrant corner fartherlands actually have the same diagonal line as the southeast one. And the northeast ones will also have the same diagonal line as the southwest. It's basically the same thing, but now it's happening for two noise generators. So the northwest corner fartherlands, so if there was any layer in the northwest corner fartherlands that has both air and earth, then that layer in the corner fartherlands will actually be the same as it is in the southeast, and again the same applies to the northeast and the southwest. And note that the northeast corner fartherlands, when X is significantly further out than Z, are also a mirror image of that area of the northwest corner fartherlands, which is the inversion of the southeast corner fartherlands when X is much larger than Z, and vice versa. Anyway, the northwest corner fartherlands will actually end up being an exact copy of the southeast ones, and the same for the northeast and southwest, except for the layers where both noise generators have air or earth inverted. So yeah, guys, that's about all I've got this time. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell and click on all for all notifications. And I'll see you guys next time.